All right, let's go.
All right, we want to welcome everybody out to media time today. President Niederhauser has asked me to start the meeting today. He is over in the Rules Committee, talking to the Rules Committee for a minute about some issues concerning our interim and how bills came out of interim. So we welcome everyone and are open for questions. We had a great day on the floor today. We moved some bills actually out, passed some committee bills that were on third reading calendar. So that's a great sign. We're moving some out of the Senate and over to the House. Questions?
What issues do you have planned for your caucus today?
We're going to be talking about the election laws, about Senate Bill 54, last year's Senate Bill 54, some of the issues that have been raised as we've tried to get into that elections process. So that's going to be probably a big part of the discussion today. We're also talking about a couple of other bills that have been on the floor that sponsors want to address some questions that came up on the floor on those bills before they go back into the back on the floor. So Senator Weiler is going to do one of those, and hopefully we'll be able to get down the list a little bit where we start talking about fairgrounds proposal that the committee that's been looking at that is going to be making, and maybe even we might even get to the point down time-wise where we also talk about the funding for the communication system that has become antiquated in the state for public safety. We're going to talk about those issues.
You would expect with SB 54 during the session?
I expect that we're going to be looking at some potential changes that may help the bill. I think we have talked about in the past the number of signatures that are required and how we set that number. I think there's a good chance we'll talk about the filing date, which may make sense to move back to where it is in line with the date of the announcement of gathering signatures, so that we have indication of who's going to be in the race. And there are other issues that will probably come up in the discussion, but I think that's a couple of the ones that probably will come up.
Will it be too late to change those for 2016?
That's why we're talking about it today, early in the session. Actually, I think the discussion is going to be that we may want to try to do something early enough to get some relief to some of the problems that we see this year. I don't know if we'll get a resolution to those questions early enough to get it through, but I think that's our intent, at least, to try to work through them.
Have the Senate Republicans discussed Senator Weiler's or Senator DeBaccus's breastfeeding bills?
We haven't heard anything about that one yet. I don't know where it is in the process, if it's coming up to committee or where that bill is in the process. But I suppose if it comes along and comes up to us, we'll be discussing it at some point.
Okay, but Senator Weiler's is coming up today.
He's bringing what?
He's bringing up the breastfeeding bill today.
In caucus?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Oh.
Okay.
And heads up. For the rural, we represent some of the rural papers, and we're always interested to talk about the state fairground. I know that has been a big deal in the rural caucus meetings. Where do you see that going now? What kind of solutions are on the table? What are you talking about as far as the fairgrounds?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the Fair Park, we have had a committee that worked during interim, and we've had a great, I think, bipartisan effort in trying to find solutions. So there's a couple of things we need to address. One is the governance of the Fair Park board. As we usually think about the Fair Park and we think about just a state fair. That's just one event out of the entire year. So that what's been very comprehensive has been the conversation of this, thinking ahead in the next 50 years. How do we want to see that amazing historical piece of who we are as a state moving forward, and also the land, right? I mean, it's a great piece of land, and it's right in the heart of Salt Lake City. And now with our the transportation accessibility, we see that as potentially making many more things and creating more things out of that place. I feel very confident that with the leadership in that committee that was assigned by the Legislative Management and Executive Appropriations. We're going to have a good proposal this year, and I know both the President of the Senate and the Speaker have been very eloquently talking about having a proposal just addressing the governance. So I can tell you from the Senate Democrats and the House Democrats, we're looking forward to continue that work with our majority representatives and senators, and we want to see something happening this year in order to be effective as we plan this. It's a big project, so we see that the work happening, but there's been tons of things done during the summer. So there's a lot of support from rural Utah to keeping it where it is, and that's something I think most of us agree, and we feel confident moving forward that that's what's going to happen. We just now need clear governance with accountability and transparency as we make really, it's pricey decisions. I mean, a lot has to do with the budget and how expensive some of the stuff is, and we need to make sure that the state of Utah feels that there's enough accountability and transparency in that process. But I think we will have a good bill, and excited to work with Representative McKell and Senator Van Tassel, which have been leading this committee that was assigned by Executive Appropriation and Legislative Management.
So what's the vision there? Is it the vision that this will be a multi-use a venue that can be used all year round, not just during fair time?
Absolutely, and that's the point. I mean, we've been missing on that for 20 years, so it's about time we make that change. So yeah, I mean, keep the fair, even talking about combining the county fair with that. So there's been conversations with Sally County as well. The rodeo, I mean, so yeah, multi-use facility as well inside. I mean, it could look like offices. I mean, many things. It's a big piece of land, so the potential is endless. But we do want to keep the fair, keep the sense of combining rural and urban Utah in that place, and I think it's doable. I mean, there's a lot of proposals, but if you don't have a committee that is accountable and that could come and present and get that, blessing, if you want, from the executive branch as well as the legislative branch, it makes it very difficult for us to go back to our constituents and be accountable and responsible for what's taking place there.
Thank you.
That's very good. We have some tremendous opportunities for that property if we can move forward and start thinking forward on how we want to accomplish the opportunities that we do have out there. So rural and urban, as the good senator said, is a great mix in that area, and so the fair is important there too, but many other opportunities are going to be coming out there.
We don't have a venue that this could be for outdoor events. That means a fairly large investment by the legislature to renovate those buildings, but the outdoor retailers could use it. The arts what is it called? Every year there's the
Arts Festival.
All those kind of events. If there was a great outdoor venue for it, and and it fits right with the park.
Yeah.
And the difficulty is that there's at least some sentiment in the legislature that we need to create a profit, or at least needs a cash flow to break even. And that's very difficult unless you do what other states do. Like at least one of them has horse racing, and it's very profitable in this state. But we're not going to be going down that road anytime soon. So, and I think we just have to realize that. I think our best hope is maybe a break even and on something like that, but create a venue that is an asset to the state and it's an asset to the community.
Thinking about horse racing, this is kind of
Maybe I should have brought that up.
thinking about gambling. Has anybody been discussing or concerned about those daily fantasy sports websites, FanDuel or DraftKings, I think is the other one. I know some states are looking at regulating those. Have you heard of? Does anybody have any concerns about those at this point?
I have seen some of the other states that are starting to look at it, but I don't know of anything yet here. I haven't seen anything. Maybe we'll kind of watch what happens in other states and see how that goes. And
the Attorney General hasn't raised any issues. I mean, usually it's been some of the Attorney Generals around the country as more of a predatory, practices in those states. And it doesn't seem to be an issue here. And we haven't heard anything.
We all cheer for the 49ers and their average.
But don't put anything down.
The Broncos are moving forward.
You had majority leadership meeting today with the House, is that right?
Joint
This
leadership.
morning.
This morning, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, anything to come out of that, any discussion items that you can share with us here today?
Probably nothing that we haven't already talked about. We're talking about in caucus. We're going to be we talked a little bit about SB 54 and how we may or may not agree on some of those issues. Otherwise, it was mostly financial information. We had great updates from our financial advisors, Jonathan Ball, and from our legal advisors who are telling us that there are lots of bills filed. We got a report on the number of bill files. We're actually 65 bills ahead right now of where we were last year total. So last year was a record number of bills filed. This year we already have 65 more than that, and we anticipate several, a number more. So lots of ideas and lots of issues, and that's what we do. We are incubators of ideas, and we'll try to get to as many as we can that are that get through the system and get lots of input from the public, and those are the good ones that end up passing. But we'll probably end up doing more bills this year. At least we'll probably address more bills in the system in all the committees than we did last year.
We ought to cut the session at 35 days. You guys would not have that extra work to do.
I have a question for Senator Hilliard. Just Bear Lake was high on the agenda for the newspaper in Logan last year, and do you feel like the bill that went through and the law that was put together, does that address most of the issues of Bear Lake, or is there some other things that still to be done?
That's interesting because I've had very little complaint about the lake.
Sounds like it's working then, maybe.
Yeah, it sounds like to me it's working out.
I still have had a couple of complaints down here. Access to the beach and state sovereign lands is a pretty complicated issue, and there seems to be some people there that don't want the lakefront people don't want to have the non-lakefront people have access to the beach, and that'll be, I think, a long-term controversy.
It's kind of the view. If they own down to the beach, they own all the way to the water. And now when the water's down so low, that creates the...
But that's all state sovereign land.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you talked with the House this morning about SB 54. Are there differences between the two chambers about what you want to do this year on that, or?
No, I don't know. My guess is that we just don't do anything because of a lot of it's in the courts right now. And it's very difficult now to change much with the election process because it's already started. And it's hard to come in and make those changes. We had a list of about 4 items last fall. I think you're aware of those, that we thought about coming into a special session for, but we never could ever agree upon. and so the discussion today is just, is there any more agreement on any of this? And I don't see that there really is. We're going to be having some discussions over the next few days just on the legalities of the lawsuit by the state GOP and what that means. And so there's some education process that still needs to take place. Does that answer your question, Lee?
Yeah, it sounds like you're talking in caucus about all of that today too.
Yes. Yeah. Any other questions? Got anything from our viewers?
Not yet. Still picking up.
Well, great. Thanks for coming. We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you. Thanks for
We have to
inviting
start
us.
doing something for Matt.